And then we moved up to 82nd or 83rd floor, but we were way, way up there. And if you look at the list of tenants, right above us was Cantor Fitzgerald. It's the bond trading desk of the company that lost most people on 9/11. I think they lost more than 500 people. And Haverlatnik.
So you were in the office that day it happened.
Welcome to the Bricks and Banks podcast, where real estate meets real wealth. Whether you're building from the ground up or stacking your paper to the ceiling, Steph breaks down property power plays and money moves you can act on. From first-time buyers to seasoned investors, this podcast is your blueprint for financial freedom through property, investment, and business. Subscribe now. It's time to build your future. This is Bricks and Banks with Steph.
And we are live. Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of the Bricks and Banks podcast. I am your host as always, Stephanie. And today on the podcast with me is a 9/11 survivor. He's an Olympian and he's the founder of wingsforheroes.org. Join me in welcoming Lyubim Mac to the podcast today. Hey Lyubim.
Hi Stephanie, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to see. I mean, my day has been quite busy and stressful, but I feel like looking at you right now made it all worth it. Like, okay, I feel like we're going to have an amazing conversation today because I was just telling someone about your story and the person was really intrigued and people are actually looking forward to this podcast. So,
oh, how cool.
So
okay.
Can you
No
share your
pressure at all on
story?
me. Okay.
All the pressure on you right now because the world is on your shoulders. Can you share your story with us? Who are you? How did you get here? How did you get into the sports? How did you navigate through 9/11? And where are you here now? Just let us know who you are, actually.
Oh boy. I think I'm just the guy who is keeping the promise. I think that we as a society make a collective promise to people who go and defend us.
Yeah.
And basically the deal, the way I see it, is that they go keep the bad guys out while me, you, and the listeners, we live in a peaceful place. I hope everyone is in peaceful place. And these men and women, they're super brave and they are just awesome. And the ones that I take care of are the ones that had amputations. And now we started getting deaf veterans. So I am working with the most awesome group of people that I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people in my life. So, they really, you want to talk about resilience and positive attitude, go find yourself an amputee veteran who is trying to learn how to walk. And we actually had a big achievement. We have one of our guys got on the bike and he rode.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he got on the bike. He had amputation on June 26th, 2 years ago. So we're approaching 2 years in 2 weeks, and this is the first time that he got on the bike. And it was pretty exciting. And I actually have the video. I didn't have a chance to post it, but it will be on our website.
Okay, that's amazing. Before we get to what's important to our listeners, how did you get here? I feel like you've lived different lives at different points. So what was childhood for you like growing up, your family? How did you become?
Okay.
Yes. So can you just share
I am
that
saying
bit?
that I have unfair advantage over most people. Started in childhood. My mom was killed when I was 1. So when all the babies get held and they get support and they get the nourishment, I kind of skipped that stage. And I think I had to grow up really fast and learn things that a lot of people try to learn later in life. And when you're conscious, it's really hard to make that separation. I think that by the way my stars lined up, I didn't have a choice at many things. So I think a lot of my, all of the accomplishments, so everything that I accomplished, I was really curious about what it would be like if I learned something, if I went somewhere, if I did something. So it's like never ending adventure, that is keeps going. I lived in different countries. And when I say, I 5 times immigrant, that not that I went to a place, I actually lived there for a year at least or more.
What countries were these?
So 1992, I finished high school. Just 91 is when the Berlin Wall fell and when the Soviet Union broke up. And the next year after the Soviet Union broke up, I went to the United States and I lived there for 24 years. So it was like quarter of a century in one country. But I left. I was a skier, and I knew I wanted to ski. I am
Mm-hmm.
a child of Cold War. I grew up during Cold War in the 70s
Mm.
and 80s, and my picture of the United States was that Ronald Reagan is sitting in his office, and he has this red button, and he can go boom, and we're all done.
Wow.
Yeah, but I also knew that there were Olympic Games in Lake Placid in 1932
Mm-hmm.
and 1980. So when I went to the States, I just packed one bag. I had my jumping boots, helmet, and my ski suits. I wore my training track suit, and I remember that I didn't even have socks on the plane. And then,
Wow.
and then I get to the United States. Yeah, I get to the United States, and my uncle lived there. They moved there
Okay.
about 4 or 5 years earlier, and
Mm.
I asked him to help me find the ski school. So he wrote letters to all the ski schools in Northeast in the
Mm.
United States, and I actually was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship to the National Sports Academy in Lake Placid. They
Okay.
just recently, they closed, but they've been running for a long, long time. And I got to learn English. I got to live for free. I got to eat, and they let me ski as much as I wanted to. They actually even gave me skis. My first pair of skis
Oh,
came from the
nice.
same school. So I'm eternally
Okay.
grateful to that organization, even though it doesn't exist. It does exist in my heart and always will.
Yes.
One
So
of the
was that
things.
was that the point you got into sports?
Oh no, I've been doing sports all my life. I was on the national
Mm.
team, but
Okay.
but when the Soviet Union broke up in '91, it was really clear that the skiing is over. But when I got
Mm.
a chance to go to the States, it was like a second chance, and I knew I'm going to ski, so I came
Land of the free.
physically super fit. I haven't skied in a while. It was more than a year, but I was in really good physical shape, and I got lucky because I was there in between the seasons.
Mm.
So I just had to test, physical conditioning, and they said, okay, come. And then when we started skiing, it was a totally different thing because I had to restart, and it took me quite a while to get my ski legs back. But it all
Okay.
worked out really nice for me. I'm really lucky with finding that place.
One of the intriguing thing about your story was your 9/11 experience. Can you share how that shaped your life? Can you just share the experience, how it was for you being at the World Trade
So
Center
one
and
of the
everything
things I
happening?
think if we go talk about, we're talking about skiing and now we're going to go into finance, I just
Yes.
have to mention that we really have to be careful with what we wish for. And in my case, I had a dream of skiing, and my dad
Mm.
had a dream that I would go to a really good business school. And the only issue was that when I got into New York University, NYU was 300 miles away from where I could ski. And I actually made it work by doing the 600-mile commute every weekend for more than 2 years. Winter, summer, it
Wow.
was not, yeah. I look back and I have no idea how I did it because when we had competitions season, it was a lot more than 600 miles. And, it actually added an extra night because you cannot go anywhere after the competitions. You have to wait, there's an
Mm.
award ceremony, and then you're super tired and driving from Northeast in the United States in the middle of the night after you competed all day. It was super hard. So, what I did was I picked all my classes that they would end on Thursday. On Thursday, I
Okay.
would pack up my stuff, go to the bus station, and go to Albany, New York. That's halfway. And then I would pick up my car and drive to Lake Placid. And then I would
Wow.
come back. And when I was at
How many
NYU,
how many hours was this commute time?
so you
About
basically go from New
2
York to
hours.
Albany, I would say it was by bus, it was like 3, 4 hours. Yeah. And then the drive was a lot faster. I had a lot of speeding tickets, but it was a lot faster. They could never slow me down, no matter how many they wrote. I just kept going. Yeah, but when you're a
Okay.
teenager, you don't learn those
Yeah.
things. You just want to get to a place so you can ski in the
Yes.
morning.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. When I had to get up really early, I did my training really early in the morning before going to school.
Mm.
And I saw World Trade Center, the old towers, like every day, every morning I go to the West Side Highway. There's a really nice running trail, and you cannot miss them. Anywhere you go out, or you used to go out in New York, they were there. And
Saints,
my
yeah.
biggest dream was to work in the World Trade Center. I really didn't care what I would do as long as I could work in those buildings. And it actually how it worked out. My first job was on the trading desk, and we were at 50 Broad Street. If you look at the address of the New York Stock Exchange, the original part of the New York Stock Exchange, I think it was 14 Broad Street, but
Oh,
then they
wow.
went around the corner and extended because Wall Street is in the corner of Wall and Broad, or New York Stock Exchange is on the corner of Wall and Broad. And
Okay.
my first job was like 2 blocks, which is 2 buildings from the New York Stock Exchange. And it was so awesome. You walk out, you like look to the left, and that's where the New York Stock Exchange. So, for somebody who just graduated from college and,
Yeah.
just first job, it was awesome. But then a few months later, a few traders, they decided to break away, and they said, we have an office in the World Trade Center. Do you want to come with us? I said, yes. And they said, but you haven't even heard what the offer is. I don't care about the offer.
As long as it's in that building, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am coming. And, first we were on the 45th floor, and then we moved up to 82nd or 83rd floor, but we were way, way up there. And if you look at the list of tenants, right above us was Cantor Fitzgerald. It's the bond trading desk of the company that lost most people on 9/11. I think they lost more than 500 people. And Howard Lutnick.
So you were in the office that day it happened.
I just the CEO of the company who lost most people is Howard Lutnick. He is the Treasury, U.S. Treasury right now. He's a big guy. He's the President Trump's one of his money guys. Yeah.
Okay, paid off. So were you in the office that day it happened, or you were just close by in close proximity?
So it was. I remember that it was Tuesday, and we had elections. And on Monday, I saw my friend from NYU, and we actually ended up staying up really late. And it was one of the days, maybe like my first day that I was ever late, because I'm one of those. My dad taught me that punctuality is the privilege of the kings. And until September 11th, I was never late, and I was late on that day. And if you ask anybody and everybody who I know was late. People were just, it was amazing. They had to do things, got stuck in traffic, couldn't find parking. It was just some random stuff that kept everybody away from the buildings. I was downstairs when so ours was the North Tower, One World Trade Center, the one with the antenna, and it got hit first.
Wow.
And I was outside downstairs when the second plane flew into the South Tower. So the side where, when you see the smoke goes out and then it comes back in. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. So I was right outside, and I saw that fireball, and, you could feel how everything was shaking.
Wow.
Yeah. You want to know more?
So how did that experience shape who you are today, and how did you move from that experience into founding Wings for Heroes?
Look, we're talking about 2001. It was a long period of time. It was another way of life moving me out of place that I was done with. I never liked New York as a place to live because, it's a concrete jungle, and I love mountains. I love, when you ski, I just love the space. And the next morning we went to the West Side Highway, and you could see the buildings burning and the smoke going across the river towards New Jersey. And I knew there was nothing left for me to do. I wanted to work in the World Trade Center, but now it was gone. So, once the roads opened up in 2 or 3 days, I don't remember exactly, because the National Guard moved in and you couldn't really freely drive. So once the roads opened up, I packed up my car and I drove to Colorado. Then I went to California. I didn't like that place much. And then I went back to Colorado for about 5 months. And then I went to Texas. There was another trading firm that I worked for in Texas. And then I got hired by American Express. And at the end of 2003, I moved to Denver, Colorado. And that's where I stayed until I left let's see, 2015. So for more than almost 12 years, I lived in Colorado. And what it taught me, basically,
Mm.
because, my place of work was destroyed and I went to somewhere else to find another place to live and work.
Yeah.
I was classified as a displaced person, and the American Red Cross sent me a check for $15,000.
Oh, wow.
So what?
Okay.
Yeah. So what I learned is that when you think that it's the end,
Mm.
it's not the end. That miracles happen, and we're on a financial show. And throughout my career, and I owned my own company since 2004. There were a lot of miracles when you don't know how you're going to make ends meet. And I am by nature aggressive, so I want to grow and I always expand and I go all in,
Mm.
which, for your listeners, not is not always the best thing if you want to be financially independent and never have to work, but it's a boring way. It's really predictable, really steady, and you don't get much adventure. But I had some situations when I grew at the wrong time and I couldn't meet my cash flow obligations. And then I just had some people sending checks, random checks. So that
Wow.
2001 experience told me that life will move you where you need to go. And of course, you can try to resist, but
Mm.
the push will get stronger. And for me, it's always been really easy, to pick up and go. And by living in different places, you realize how different people are.
Yeah.
I never take it for granted. Like, you can stand next to somebody and you can look at the same thing and you can see two
Different
completely different
perspective.
things. Like, yes, like black and white. And to give you a specific example, our last retreat. So what we do is for Wings for Heroes is I take amputees and I have deaf veterans. So I take them away from their environment and I bring them for a retreat to Turkey. And the reason
Nice.
Turkey is because we have the sea, we have the mountain, we have a culture that is really interesting and different,
And you
and we
have the
have really
sun. The sun is there.
and we have really cool people that are warm-hearted like the weather. So it
Yes.
really works out here. I forgot what I was going to say, but this is a super. It's a perfect place to take people out and to have them relax. And one of the things we do is we take them paragliding
Mm.
because
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I did that. I did that the last time I visited Turkey. That was back in 2023. I went
you flew.
paragliding. It was yeah, it was.
So you remember that moment when you go off like you think I'm dead and I don't even know
I,
that guy or girl behind me? Did you have that time?
I do not know who was behind me. I just knew that someone was behind me and he told me, don't run off, don't sit yet until you get in the air. Just start running. And I running to where I'm running off the mountain. I'm running off the cliff. But it was very amazing experience for me because it just gave me that prompt to let go. When you let go, the everything aligns for you. If you keep on holding on to where you are, you would never move forward. You would never experience a different life. So
Yes.
that was a core memory for me when I was in
Yeah.
Turkey.
And my first flight was I got so scared that I couldn't really, we landed. I was like this, "Ooh, what is going on?"
No,
Yeah,
I
my hands
wasn't
were
scared.
shaking. I was so scared. And then when I thought about doing something for veterans, I thought if
Hmm.
we go off the cliff, then for some period of time, they'll be so scared for their life that they'll forget that they're missing legs. And, it actually worked. So far, it's been working out this
Nice.
way.
Wow. I love the way you captured your story and how these events have led you to the purpose that you're chasing right now. Basically, titled this episode, No Margin for Error, One Man's Promise, Purpose, and the Price of Leading Alone. So how did you come about making a promise to yourself that became Wings for Heroes? How did that promise come to life?
So I'll back up a little bit to the United States. I worked
Okay.
super hard, and as the first generation immigrant, you really have no fallback. So you have to push all the time. And
Yes.
I had a decade where I took no vacations and I allowed myself a few hours on Sunday, to go outside to the park. And all other time I locked myself in the office and I was working.
Yeah.
And, after going through the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, I did pretty well. I got an invitation to present in New York at Steve Forbes's Success in the New Economy. And after that, I got an offer to contribute to his book that was coming out. And then the book came out and it became a bestseller in 2014.
Wow.
And then 2015 in the summer, I was invited to the United Nations headquarters in New York. And I got to speak with my mentor, Brian Tracy. And he's basically the guy who taught me how to talk, because in 2003, I was a zero. I went to NYU and then I worked for a trading company, but I never talked to people. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all my work was
Sure.
just, in the
Just you on your
computer. Yeah.
computer, you on your screen,
Yeah.
taking
You
in
dig through a lot of
trade.
financial statements, but you don't talk to
Yes.
people. You invest money, but you don't talk to people. And the only time I talk to people is when the phone rang and there was risk control, like what is going on with the oppositions? Do you need some help getting out of your losers? And I didn't have many of those calls, fortunately. But, once you write a book with Steve Forbes and you speak at the UN with Brian Tracy, I was like, if you have one financial avenue, like where everybody is, I felt like I'm standing there and there are no cars around me. I'm actually the only car and all the lights are green. So anywhere I would go with a resume like this, the door was open and it was time for me to reap the rewards of all the hard work, for the previous, we're talking about, 20 years, more than 20 years. But then I I was in Ukraine and I did an internal audit for a company. And after that audit, it was clear that they're going to have to lay off management because a lot of things changed. The war actually in Ukraine started in 2014. It did not start in 2022.
Oh,
The
really?
Crimea was annexed in 2014. Nobody said a word. And there was fighting going on the east side, but they called it a terrorist operation. Like Russia kept refusing that it's their soldiers. They said it's not ours. So nobody knew who they were fighting. Like everybody knew, but nobody wanted to take the responsibility. And at that time, there was no solidarity. So basically, it was an infrastructure company that we needed to buy diesel from outside of Ukraine, but we couldn't find credit. And if we found credit, nobody would insure it. And if you are in oil business, if you lose a train load of diesel, it will put any company out of business because, those are huge numbers. So the working environment was completely like, you cannot learn it in a textbook. They haven't written a textbook like that yet. And I went through the crisis and I saw how people were. And basically when people are scared with finances a lot of times, and I don't know if you noticed it or not, it's a deer in the headlights. It's like,
Yeah.
I am not moving. I'm not doing anything. I just don't talk to me. Statements are away. Don't show me anything. Everybody's fearful for losing their job and the economy and all the things that people are worried about, and they just freeze. So here I am. I spent quite some time. We're talking about 2 months doing an audit. It's a big nationwide company with more than 2,000 employees. And they asked me after that, they said, okay, we're going to let some people go and we don't have anybody who can take over. Can you stay until, and they give me until what? And I looked around and, Stephanie, I don't know if you were in a situation like when people look at you like you're their last hope.
Yes.
Like they just tried everything and nothing worked. And here I show up from the United States.
And you didn't
I
and
have
you
a
didn't
great
plan to stay that
resume.
long. You just came to do your audits and go, and now you have to make the compromise.
Yeah. So, they asked me, will you stay? And I said yes before I really knew what was going on in the country, because you
Oh,
don't really feel the war when you're on the west side, and when it's going on the east side, it's 1,000 kilometers. So we're talking about more than 500 miles away. But once I started working and moving around the country, I realized that we are really in there is a war going on. And I really saw a challenge, and I really saw that I can make difference in people's lives. And that's why I stayed. So I didn't cash out on my success. And when I knew the numbers, I knew that they would not be able to pay my salary because the situation was so dire. The company had more than 90 gas stations and half of them didn't have diesel and the stores were empty. So, it's just a matter of time. if a gas station stops, it takes so much money to start it. And imagine you have 40 of those. So it was an operational nightmare. And then I had to teach people how to do their job correctly. I had to build teams. I had to learn, I had to teach them. They had to learn how to accept responsibility and deliver their job on time. And I probably spent first 5 years just teaching people and building teams. Finding somebody who is really hard worker somewhere doing the work in the trenches and bringing them into corporate offices and giving them responsibility. I want to see that everywhere. Can you do it? And a lot of people stepped up and said yes. When you're leading without the roadmap, one thing is you need to understand sometimes you have to put your interests last, which is the wrong thing to do if you think about you have to take care of you. But if I did that, then we would not be successful. And if a company that has 20-year plus history, if it fails, then the last guy who is there is responsible. And I'm not that guy. I don't like losing. Actually, I like winning.
You're a winner. You're a sports person, and you're not Olympian.
I'm
So
super competitive. Money doesn't drive me, but the competition does. That's what drives me. Yes.
Adrenaline that comes from winning, the rush of energy. That's what keeps you going.
And then, you're responsible for 2,000 families. I was clearly aware that if we fail, then 2,000 families, it's not 2,000 people. It's 2,000 people who have kids, who have homes, who have, life. And now I look back at it, this is a really special feeling, so many people could keep their home and feed their kids because they stayed. So, personal level of satisfaction is 10 plus.
So how long did you now spend in Ukraine doing that?
So
is it 10 years?
Again, we'll go timeline because I know that 2015, I went to Ukraine and I stayed there. Yeah. And you asked me what the genesis, what the beginning of Wings for Heroes was.
Yes.
One day we were at one of the gas stations near the highway and I see this double MPT rolls out from our store and he goes towards the highway. And I know there is no pedestrian walk and especially you cannot go with a wheelchair. I mean, he just goes there. Less than 20 minutes, we have this huge storm that rolled in. It was thunder, lightning, wind. And I am thinking about that guy, because I know the distance till next town and it will take you, 10 minutes driving. And with the wheelchair, it will take him a day. So I called the garage and I said, look, I need a pickup truck now, like now. And, infrastructure company, one of the benefits is that you have all kinds of different vehicles and one of the drivers came and we went in the direction where that guy rolled and we found him on the side of the road. He was all splashed by big trucks we are 40 kilometers from border with Hungary, 40 with Slovakia, 60 with Romania. So it's a huge traffic of trucks going and, this guy was on the side of the road. He was completely covered in dirt. In totally soaked and nobody stopped and came out and he's in the wheelchair. So we put him in the car, we put his chair in the back in the pickup truck and we drove him wherever he wanted to go. And if you cleaned him up and dressed him up, you could tell that he was in really bad shape. I think back about him, it was 2016, so we're getting close to 10 years. And it was probably the last act of kindness that he experienced in his life. And then I knew that it's like I had to do something because nobody's doing anything. That's one of the misconceptions that people who are privileged to live in the Western society, the US, the UK, we think that there is a system that takes care of veterans. And in reality, the system exists, but it doesn't take care of them. People take care of people. Systems, they don't take care of people.
Take care of them ourselves. What specifically drew you to veterans? Was it just because you encountered the first veteran or you've always had a soft spot for veterans?
Look, I grew up when I was 5 years old, the Afghanistan war started. And we're talking about, Soviet Union went to Afghanistan and it lasted until I was 16. So from the beginning of my conscious life, until I was almost graduating from high school. The background was war, and you see people coming back handicapped. Post-traumatic stress disorder it was just everywhere. The system did not take care of them. As a matter of fact, in the former Soviet Union, it was a normal thing for police to pick up fights with, and beat up some veterans who came back from Afghanistan. It was like almost daily entertainment. And for more than 40 years, I had a question. I had really good guys who I was a kid, and they were teaching me sports. And then they would get drunk, like totally drunk. And I was always wondering, like, why do they drink? Why are they broken like that? Why is the system that sent them,
To war.
fight? Why doesn't it take care of them? And I think I answered that question for myself just this year. So for more than 40 years, I had one question in mind. And one thing that I can tell you, you cannot pity those guys and girls. That's one thing that you cannot do. That's the biggest misconception. I am not a charity, Stephanie. I don't run a charity. I have a mission. And my missions, I save lives. I bring them back to life. And what that means to me and to everybody is that, it's one guy or girl who were forgotten and would have died from drinking. Now they want to do sports and they want to have families and they want to show everybody that they're not out. So it's just, if you've seen Seabiscuit, have you seen Seabiscuit, the movie?
No, I haven't.
So basically, it's this winning horse that gets injured, and then he goes back in the competition, and he cannot race like he did before until one jockey like slows down enough that Seabiscuits get in front, and he feels the taste of what it's like to win, and he becomes that winning horse. So I give them that taste, I give them that experience, that somebody cares, that you're needed, and most importantly, I make them travel here. I do it on purpose. I want them to go outside of their country so they know, like, they were told that they're finished, right? Like the systems, here's your prosthetic leg, here is your fake eye, we stitch your ear, you can hear, and it's bye-bye. But by traveling outside and seeing how I have a lot of volunteers. That's one thing that I was always certain that if I build this and when I build this, they will come. The people will show up. And as we speak right now, I know you had a stressful day, and I had a stressful day too. We started swimming. So basically,
Nice.
we had the first guy who we flew. He was 20 years old when the war started. He actually turned 20 on February 9th. It was 13 days before the full-scale invasion started in 22 in February. And he volunteered. He didn't have to go. Draft age is 25, and he decides, I'm going to go. So he gets to the Ukrainian army, and they put him to fly drones. But it wasn't enough for him. He said, we started writing a book because his story is amazing. I said, why didn't you stay there? I mean, you're really productive in terms of what you're doing. And he said, I felt like I'm hiding behind the back of civilians. And he said, I wanted to go to the front line, and I want them to be behind my back. So he goes out and he loses his leg. It's going to be 2 years in June 26th, I think. So we're like 2 weeks away. And when I asked the Ukrainian government to give me a veteran, a hero, so I would run off the mountain with him or her, they gave me a guy who was a double amputee, but he got scheduled for another surgery 1 week before, and they sent me another guy. So we refer to that guy as number one. So our number one was the first, he was the first when the mission became real. It happened last year, also in June. It took me a year and a half to actually make it real. And then last year he comes and he flies. And he has an open invitation to come to the beginning of the season and the end of the season for as long as this mission exists, because he's number one. So our last mission, our last retreat, now there are 10 days. So it's 1+1, one veteran and a spouse or family member, because they have special needs, and hiring caregivers. I may need 2 or 3 for one guy, but if they come with a family member, then it's taken care of.
Yes.
So number one came last year, and I said, you can come this year for the opening. So it was April 9 to 19. And I took him to my physical therapist. I have a little issue with my shoulder. And I said, come on, we're going to physical therapy. And she looks at his leg and she says, Lyubim, look, this guy is going to lose his only leg because he's standing on one leg, and from putting pressure on the muscles,
So much
they're
pressure.
shrinking. They're super strong, but they're shrinking, and they shrunk to the point where it's pressing on his sciatic nerve. And he's also a captain of his amputee soccer team, so he's super active. And she says he does one wrong move and he can become paralyzed for the rest of his life. And we're talking about in April, we're a young mission. And I knew that moment that if I cannot bring him back, then the whole thing is like, it's not real, it's like a Mickey Mouse. Like everybody knows that he exists,
Yeah.
but nobody really saw him. So this is from April of this year. Can you see it?
Oh, yes, I can.
The guy who is in the middle, he's our
In the
number
middle.
one.
Oh, okay.
He's our number one. And I told him in April, look, you're coming back the next month. And I had no idea how I'm going to bring him.
I think that picture is on your website, isn't it? I think I saw the
Maybe.
picture.
But
I
there
think
is
it's on
one
your
thing that is
website.
not on our website. It's the back of this card. And this is one of the most important things that I can share with you or your listeners. And that's how you get things done. When you don't know how you're going to achieve your goals and dreams financially, you want to start a project, you want to start a new company, you want to expand, you want to go to the next goal, but you don't have the money. This is what you do. So I went to the print shop and I wrote why we are here. Number one, must begin 30-day physical therapy program in May of 2025 to save his only leg. This is not charity. This is a second chance, not just for them, but for all of us. You're not holding a card. You're holding a promise. Excuse me. You're holding a promise that was kept.
Wow.
May 29th, he started his physical therapy for 1 month. What I want to share with you and your listeners is that if you made a decision that you're going to do something,
Just do
and
it.
you take the first step, in my case, he was saying that this is a done deal. I am putting it on the card. It's finished. That the whole universe is going to line up, and you will be amazed how people will show up. The
Show up
money
and
will show
support
up.
your
The
mission.
opportunities will show up.
Yes.
Everything will show up as long as you make the decision and make that first step. And then you have to make the second first step, and you just make one step at a time. Your job is to do one step. If you want to reach any goals, if you want to go to the Olympics, if you want to become number one guy in finance, if you want to go save the world, it all starts with making the decision
One step
and taking action.
and
So,
sticking to it, because it's one thing to take action. It's another thing to inspire people, because who are leaders? A leader is someone who serves. It's someone who sets the example. Most people think leaders are people that tell them what to do. That's not who a leader is. That's your boss. A leader is someone who leads by example. And you're leading people. And in your website, you mentioned that there are no offices, no overhead, no corporate sponsors. Yet, we just had actions and a team of volunteers. You've been able to lead such an impactful operation. So, what does this teach you about leading when traditional resources are scarce?
look, I have a really big experience with being in situations that seem hopeless. We are going back to my childhood, like I survived. And just think back about any situation that happened before. You made it through. So why wouldn't it happen? Why would you
Sure.
not make it through this time? So one of the things you need to realize that, you are very important for this planet. We all are. We're all in the same boat. Some people are drilling holes in the boat, which may sink us all. And some people are fixing the holes. But the thing is that the one thing that holds most people back is self-doubt. And the more chances you take, and the more the more steps you take towards your goal, the more confident you become. If you have self-confidence, is the most important thing that you can have. You can be in any situation, in any crisis. You can be in the middle of the war, God forbid. But if you end up in a situation that you're not liking, just know you can change that.
Makes sense. So let's talk about your slogan. It says keeping the promise. What does that promise truly mean to you? And how can everyday people contribute to this collective promise, even though, even through their financial endeavors? Because on your website, you talk about you talk a lot about keeping the promise. So what does promise mean to you? What's that promise you're trying to keep?
Thank you for asking this question because I think keeping promises is the foundation of our system. Just imagine if I didn't keep a promise to be here or you didn't keep a promise to be there. Excuse me. I think people make promises without really pausing and thinking about the consequences. You know, we make promises to our kids, to our spouses, to everybody. But
Yeah.
let's say you are the boss, right? And you have people working for you. And you promise them that every 2 weeks I will give you whatever dollar, or you pay them a salary. And if they do the work that you need them to do. So on the first of the month, you agree, they show up, they do their work. And then 2 weeks goes by and there is no paycheck. So people have obligations. They have families, they have kids, which
They
means they're
have
not meeting
bills.
their obligations. They're breaking promises that they made on their own, even though it's not their fault. They did their work, they showed up, they kept their promise, but their boss didn't pay them. So at some point, those people will not show up, and the boss is going to be alone and the company will fail. And you can reverse it the same way. Let's say a boss is paying to his employees and then they don't show up. So what I'm trying to say is that our society is built on promises and we function by keeping promises, and it makes our life easier and more efficient. Imagine if you had to pay your employee every hour they work. Like you have 1,000 employees, you have to make 1,000 payments, 8 hours a day. That's 8,000 a day. And if you go for, it's 40,000 per week or 160,000 per month. So it would be just so much extra work. So when we make promises, just another person or an entity on the end of the broken promise will adjust accordingly moving forward, right?
Mhm.
Now, imagine if you're promising our future, which are men and women who are, they are in their prime, 18 plus, 18 to 25. We tell them, okay, we know that the bad guys are out there and they're trying to start wars, and they will always want to, the war wants to go from east to the west. I say, if you wake up in the morning, you look at the rising sun, that's what the war is. And it wants to come your way just like the sun does. And in that space, there are brave men and women who said, no, you're not going to come to my home and you're not going to take my stuff from my family, from my friends, from my country. So when those people get injured and they become disabled by protecting us, when they come back, we have a contract as a society that we have to take care of them, period.
Yes.
Not the system, not the government. One of the biggest things that I hear, Stephanie, people say, Lyubim, why are you doing this thing? This is like the government's supposed to do it, like some departments. And I'm saying, look at this guy, the guy in red shorts. He's almost 3 years in the front lines. He had a hand grenade explode next to him. He had a plastic surgery. You cannot see it, but he cannot hear. His ear is stitched. It's been stitched together. And he had zero psychological treatment. He has nobody he can talk to. He cannot get any help. So all he wanted to do is stay inside and drink.
Wow.
And I asked him, a few times I forced him to come, like we were doing things and he is coming out because he's part of the group, he's been invited. And then we were this is about, remember we mentioned that two people can be looking at the same thing and seeing two totally different. That's an example. We had a breakfast. I just gathered all the volunteers and I want them to say what this mission is about. I wanted to talk about my childhood and what it means to me. We were having breakfast at the place that is overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. It's just beautiful. You can see the mountains, you can see the sea. It's just so great. And it started raining and we had this metal roof and it's just like the rain is falling on the metal roof. Everyone's relaxing, enjoying, except the guy in the red shorts. He is going like this. And I come up to him and I say, are you okay? Well, that noise hitting the roof, that noise brought him back, and he's like, I'm okay. I said, look, you can leave. I'll go get you from outside when I do my speech. So after that, I told him, look, you don't need to do anything. If you want to stay inside and drink, you have that right. Because he just finished 2 weeks ago. He had his injury, they stitched him, and they sent him back out to fight. So he's discharged 2 weeks, and they said, look, you can stay, you can do what you want, you deserve, you earned it. This time, do what you want. You don't even need to come out. I make group chats, and they know what we're having, what activities and when they need to be where, so they have time to prepare. And actually, next day we had the only photo shoot we had. Actually hired, a photographer, and this picture came the following day when they told him you don't need to do anything. He showed up on his own. He wasn't supposed to be in the picture. He was excused from all the activities. And after that, he showed up for everything, including one meeting with the psychologist, which was not framed as a meeting. But I asked the psychologist to come and talk to these guys. And at the end, they said, look, will you join our program? Like, I cannot pay you right now, but can you help me? And she said, you know what? I'm not only going to help the guys, I'm going to help the girls, because it's the spouses who have to deal with the consequences of the late night. And, when you're medicating with alcohol, it's not a pretty picture. But what I wanted, where I want to take this, he didn't fly. So again, the highlight of the program, 10 days, they get to go flying at the end, they go paragliding. And he was so traumatized that I said, you cannot fly, because if it goes wrong in the air, I don't know what we would do. But this time there was no flying. So he goes home, he writes me, I haven't had a drink in 7 days, and I'm checking into the Veterans Hospital for 10 days. And I just asked number one how the guy is doing, and he said, you know what, he's checking into another hospital for a month. So he is trying to stop drinking because he wants to come back and fly. So this program is kind of unfolding, the physical therapy, the psychology, the acupuncture, the swimming, the
Basically
cycling.
taking it on and using it to rebrand his life.
It's that experience that gets them out of there. It's that traumatic positive experience that people who are traumatized need to feel alive. And I'm saying I'm not charity because I'm not charity. And you cannot pity someone who is so strong. They've gone through so much. We have no idea. As a professional skier, I've spent quite an extensive period of time staring at the ceiling. After you crash and they put you together, you're just recovering, you're healing. And it's really lonely, but I was in a really comfortable environment. I had great doctors. I had all the help that I could get. They don't. And yet they are so cool. They say yes to everything. That's one thing that I learned from.
And they keep their promise as well. They keep their word, and they always show up.
So in my case, keeping the promise, it means that I know that if I stop, I don't see many people doing what I'm doing. And if at some point in time, the younger generation decides, look at my parents, look at my grandparents, the society failed them, I'm not going to go protect my country. And that's the world I don't want to live in. Because, we know what's going on, and it's real that evil exists, and it wants to come to the Western world and take all the good stuff by force. So that's what I meant by keeping the promise that we all made.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So let's talk about finances. I know you've been financially independent multiple times. I mean, piggybacking on your time at Wall Street and whatnot. And you've also been broke. So what keeps you going through these cycles, the up and down, losing money, making money? And what are the key mindset shifts that are essential for navigating the financial ups and downs, particularly for entrepreneurs like yourself and for investors who are watching?
Okay. If you want to become financially independent and that's your primary objective, you will. You just need a little bit of time. You need some knowledge. You need some guidance, and you need some kind of plan, structured plan. Because you live in the UK, you have a very good chance of becoming financially independent. And with developed countries, the UK, the US, Germany, the things are so They're relatively predictable. You can plan out next 10, 15, 20 years, and all your, let's say, the experiences when you may be out or close to being out, you have to be in that experience to learn something that will allow you to go the next level. And it's always the people who are capable of leading other people and coming out from any situation on top. They have a lot of experience. They have the edge, and the edge is like knowing how to do their things and really always keep moving. So you definitely need to have education. Like if you provide financial education, everybody needs it. You cannot get anywhere if you don't understand what's going on with your finances. Number two, you need to understand that it will take time, and we don't know how much time it will take. That's Everybody has their own path, and for some people, they may become financially independent by starting a first venture out of high school, not even going to college. And some people will have to try it their whole entire life. If somebody is in really tough situation, then you need to read autobiography of Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
Because Napoleon Hill, the guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich, he spent 25 years studying the wealthiest people in the world. During World War II, he wrote all the pamphlets to raise money. He was selling bonds for the US government. He had his own schools and he knew so much, but he was bankrupt like 4 times. Wow. And that's because the war happened, something happened, something happened. So we always have things that are outside of our control. And I remember 2008, 2009, it was scary. Like everybody talks about it as a financial crisis, but living in it, people were so scared. Nobody wanted to do anything. You couldn't get people to do anything. It was just like deer in the headlights. Everyone was frozen. So I would say from that experience is that I had to hustle, right? I had a lot of responsibilities and I saw this thing coming. So to me, it was, just holding hands and saying, look, it's cool. Just relax. We're out already before, the cookie crumbled. But if you're in a situation that things are falling apart around you, just know that there is a big lesson that you will learn and you will make out of it a lot better than you were before. It will be painful going through it. It is for everybody, but I don't think you can like look at yourself and say, look, I need to change. I really need to change something about me when everything is great. You can go to seminars, you can get training, you can get coaching, but when your back is to the wall, then when you really learn. And the one thing you learn, you get that self-confidence that you just know you can make it. You know how you hear so many people saying, what if you lose it all? Well, what would you do? Well, I can tell you what I would do, but you cannot do it. Like Michael Jordan can tell you how to become 6 times NBA champion, but we cannot do it. So you go through your own
Everyone has a different path,
struggles
essentially.
and you learn. And it doesn't, to some people it's small, to some people it's big. But first it's small, then it's bigger, then it's bigger, then it's bigger, because it's your capacity saying like, people talk about resilience. Well, resilience is like a muscle. If you are constantly doing what you need to do, you're just training yourself to be resilient. You are not feeling well, you could have canceled today, right? You could have said, hey, let's do it next day, but you didn't. So, I have a lot of respect.
I had to keep the promise. What is the biggest lesson you've learned so far working with wounded veterans in Wings for Heroes? And how has their courage and spirit, their resilience, how has it impacted your own definition of success and purpose?
They inspire people around like I could not imagine. So when you see a young guy hopping on one leg across the beach towards the sea, that moment, everybody knows what's going on. They know where they're from. It's not a secret. But just by seeing a live person who is enjoying life by hopping on one leg towards the sea, it's really inspiring. And then I don't hear any complaints. I've never heard any complaints. I've seen a lot of frustration, because sometimes they cannot get their prosthetic leg on, and it's really frustrating. It's really something is not working. But they always say yes, Stephanie. I think what I learned from them, like you would say, do you want to blank? And the answer is always yes. Like I have not heard one no.
No.
It's always yes. They're saying, I just want to live a little more. I am 23 years old. I am 29 years old. I just want to live a little more. Do you want to try this? Yes. Like it's just the biggest thing that I learned from people who lost part of their body is that what we have inside is so
Yeah.
much greater than
That
the
matter.
hands, the arms. If the brain is still thinking and you can communicate, or if you can use your head, then you are ahead of a lot of people. And just they say we should be, I'm not the jealous person, but you say if you want to be jealous, just be jealous that somebody who is lost like a part of their body, that they're so positive, that they're so looking forward to the next moment. I think they know that we're on the clock, all of us, and that we will die, and they want to experience all and everything that comes their way. So when you ask me what the biggest thing I've learned is that the time is of an essence. I always knew that. I
Yeah.
always am aware that I'm not here forever, and that big goals take decades to achieve sometimes. So even if you are lucky and live to 100, you don't really have that many decades to get big goals done. And I think we underestimate what we have inside of us, like that
Yeah, I
world.
think we just need to take the chance because a lot of people keep playing things safe, but you can't continue playing. You won't live a fulfilled life if you play safe all your life. You just need to take the chance on yourself and live, live, make the most of your life, make the most of your time, make the most of your talents. Yeah.
One thing is that we get really complacent as we get financially independent. And I remember it was right after I came back from the UN. I was living in Lake Dillon. It was over 9,000 feet
Wow.
above the sea level in the mountains. I looked to my left, I could see 10-mile range of 14ers. So it's the mountains that are 14,000 feet or higher. And then I could look at like 11 o'clock, 10 miles of them. And 2 o'clock, it was Buffalo Mountain, which was another 14er, beautiful lake, beautiful sunset. And I was like, I'm done working. I just show up 3 times.
I
Really?
made it.
I had a really nice practice, and I really had all the things that people were looking for, and my
Mm,
experience spoke that I know my business really well. So
yes.
I didn't need to invest. I invested all the hours. Now I thought I'm reaping the benefits, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to chill. But you know, in my case, I realized that life take away that financial independence or move you somewhere else where you'll have to start over.
Mm,
So if somebody lost everything they had and you worked really hard, it's just life telling you, look, maybe you relaxed too early and you need to go higher. Maybe you need to set a bigger goal next time. So, if we're talking about numbers, you say, look, you had 5 million pounds and then it all went away because you got super aggressive at the wrong time with expanding the business. That's, or environment changed and you didn't see it, right?
mm.
That means that when you're starting the next one, it's got to be 10 million and it has to be less time than it took you to make the five.
5.
So financial independence makes you soft, or made me soft, made me relax. And the universe had other plans for me and other assignments that I have to finish. So it said, okay, let's go, Lyubim. I said, no,
Let's
I like it
go.
here. I said, no, no, not like
Time
that.
to get up and go, go, go. You have some veterans to save. So, do you still trade? I know you have a chunk of your career on Wall Street, but do you still trade, or you've
I
left that life?
actually, I actually had a big experiment that it just ended. I
Okay.
right now, I'm not doing anything except focusing on the mission. And like it was just maybe a month ago,
Hmm.
when we had from the April sell-off to the rally, that's when I came back. And that was actually,
Right.
it was a really nice timing. But right now I have little positions, but I'm just, one of the rules that you need to know, well, one of the professional rules is that if you're not 100% here, don't show up to work. That's what I was told. First job on a trading desk.
Mm.
Don't go in the positions. If you have issues in your life, do not trade, because the market will find the weakness, and you will pay for it. So, but I know it's like my life. It's, I know skiing, and I know US stocks, and every day I see what's going on, and actually I tried the YouTube channel once, but I didn't like the outcome. I mean, I got the subscribers, but people weren't watching, it's like tutorials. Who wants to watch? I was actually trying to teach people. So
Okay.
I put my book aside I'm writing a book on investing and trading.
Oh,
And
nice.
now we actually, number one is here. We're writing his story, because his
Okay.
story is so cool. He's just really, really super cool guy. But I know more now about stocks than I knew when I was a investment
What's
advisor,
Oh, okay.
because when you're an investment advisor, you spend a lot of time talking to your big clients. Like, I had Aurora Police Department is a part of Denver metro area where my clients, and it requires a lot of times. And when you have pension funds who are your clients, they want attention. They want to see you. They want to talk to you. They want to go for lunch with you. They want to see you all the time because you're holding their money, Um, I know what's going on with the
Or the guy
markets.
that's holding their money because so he doesn't run away.
So I feel the pulse, but I'm not active because my mind and my attention is somewhere else. And just to tell you more, I would never go out in public and that long run-on sentence I wrote you about what I've accomplished in my life. I
Yeah.
would not write it for myself. I didn't need to. I wrote it for the guys and the girls who need help. And really, they forced me to come back from, I disappeared into an assignment, working for a company. But, this mission, I know that I will have to reach people. So that's why I'm out here talking to you. I'm not talking for me. I'm talking for them. They're super cool, but they don't really get the voice, and I am their voice.
Get your voice. Wow, they said time flies when you're having fun. So let's look at the last question. Looking ahead to what's next for you? What's next for Wings for Heroes? And our listeners are who are inspired for your story. What lesson do you have for them? What's your message to them for them to make a meaningful impact in their own lives and in their communities? Because at this point in your life, you're living out for purpose. You're not even focused on profits. Profit is not even it for you. You're just out there putting your heart out and keeping to your promise. So what's the next level for you at this stage?
So at first, the idea was just to make it happen
Mm.
and just give them a little break, take them flying. And then we found out that they need physical therapy, then they need psychology, then they need a swimming coach and acupuncture and massages and all the things that, people who've been traumatized, that they need. And one of the things my brain works in building processes that are super efficient. Like, if I have a process, it's just automatic for me. I would say that I have some kind of disability that if I don't have a structured system, then I would be lost. So if you ask me how many days I exercised in the last 20 years, I'll be able to tell you. If you
Oh,
ask me how many times I slept till like 10 o'clock, I can tell you, because, I was sick maybe 3 times, and that's so I build structures for myself, and I am super structured in my life. And when I see a process, I try to make it more efficient. And the mission right now, from the financial point of view, it's super lean, but it's not efficient, because when I bring them here and we need to, like, right now, I need to rent an apartment for 1 month in the middle of the summer in Turkey on the Mediterranean Sea. It's the season, this is when local people make money. 6 months they make money, 6 months they have to live of it. So prices are adjusted accordingly. The next step for the mission, it would be great if we could find a place, if I can get funding, that we have a villa. And, here villas, they're not as expensive as a regular home
yeah.
in England and the United States, but a permanent place where they can stay. Because I have
When
the
you
team
come
of
for the
people who will
retreats.
support them. So I want the program next step is to run 12 months out of the year. without taking breaks
Nice.
and bringing people and rotating them, because when they go home, they always want to come back. And if they want to come back, I have a leverage and I can do whatever, that means you have to continue your therapy. You cannot drink.
And
You
it's
have,
not just them coming back, it's also them giving back, because once they've seen how this experience has affected their lives positively, they would want to give back to the next person. See, I would want to sponsor this person because my life has changed and all that. So it's a ripple effect. What you're doing, it's going
yeah,
to have ripple effects and affect even larger communities. I think you don't even know what you're doing. What you're doing is bigger than yourself. It's a whole mission, it's a whole purpose. I like the fact that you're driving it in without holding back. You're just giving your entire self to it.
it takes a lot more energy
Hmm.
to make a decision for most people than to get that thing done. So, in other words, just think about your periods in life when you wanted something but you didn't make that decision, and think about all the clients and people that you talk to that are talking and thinking about one thing, and then they keep coming back year after year after year after year. And I ran my practice for 14 years, and I had some people telling me the same thing like year after year. So we have to use so much energy. We think about that. I want to start a business, for example. I want to expand my business, but I'm not doing it. So I am actually have to do a lot of mental work to not go crazy because I'm not doing something that I really want. So I'm really, but once I make that decision, it becomes really simple. I am starting my business right now. So what the first thing do I need to do? Okay, you do first thing, then the second, third, and you start moving forward. One of the decisions that I made back in, it was last century when I was at NYU. We had to take courses outside of business school to become well-rounded people. And I was taking a sociology course, and there was a famous case in New York City where a woman was on her way back from work late at night and somebody attacked her. And, she was screaming for help. And the next day, when the police was asking, they went around the buildings and they were asking how many people heard. They said there were like dozens of people that heard her crying. And the guy actually ran away and then he came back. So he raped her, he stabbed her, and she died with dozens of people saying, and some guy even turned on the light and said, "Hey, leave this lady alone." So that famous case is in the textbook and saying that a woman was screaming for help in the middle of New York City, that dozens of people heard her being attacked twice, but nobody called the police and she died.
Wow.
So it may have not been on that day, but that case, I think about it all the time. And that case made me make the decision that if I see somebody who is weaker than me, a person who is helpless, and they cannot take care of themselves, I'm going to step in. I'm not going to think when it happens. I am stepping in. And I'm well aware of the consequences that may happen when you're trying to help somebody or you stopping somebody from hurting somebody who's weak. But the thing is that like that decision has been made. I don't have to think about it. And this last year, this year, I went around the world. I wanted to see how different countries keep promises to their veterans. And one of the stops was in Geneva, Switzerland. And I ended up at the Red Cross Museum. Basically, in 1859, there was a banker, Swiss banker. His name is Henry Dunant. He was on a business trip to Italy. June 25th, he makes to a place called Solferino. And in Solferino, the Austro-Hungarian army met the Imperial Army, which was France and Italy, and they fought all day. He's just a banker watching this thing. He said they just went at each other. They said the horses were biting horses. That's how much energy people had. It was more than 300 soldiers fighting at the end of the day, more than 40,000 dead and wounded, and not one person helping. Nobody's helping.
That's
So
crazy.
Henry Dunant went around the villages and he organized all the villagers. At that time, there were women because all men were fighting. And him And women, they started pulling out injured soldiers from that field. They filled churches. They said there's some churches had 500 to 1,000 people. It took him, I don't know how long it took them, but he went back to Switzerland and he wrote a book. It's called A Memory of Solferino. And that book started the Red Cross.
Wow.
And 11 months after starting the Red Cross, they signed the first Geneva Convention. And the Geneva Conventions, they stipulate how we treat injured soldiers. You know, they're done, they're finished. And how now it stipulates how we treat innocent bystanders, because unfortunately, when the war comes, it comes not only for soldiers, it comes for civilians.
Comes for everyone.
Yes. So Henry Dunant was a banker who arrived to a place and he couldn't look away. He could not accept the fact that all those men fighting for their country, they were just left there with no help. One guy who started it, look away, and he started the Red Cross. The interesting story about Henry Dunant is that as the Red Cross became successful, he himself was pushed out and he disappeared for
Wow.
more than 20 years. Then, more than 20 years later, somebody discovered him working in a hospice in Zurich. He was destitute. You know, the place he lived at, they gave it to him. So if the hospice didn't give him a place to live, he wouldn't have a place to live. And at the end of his life, he was actually he was the first recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize for the work that he's done with starting the Red Cross and for his life of the humanitarian help. And one thing that the Red Cross is really clear about is that there are three ways that you can help. Number one, you can donate blood because there's always a huge shortage. Number two, you can volunteer and provide your service, because by volunteering and providing your service, you're doing the biggest thing that you can do. You're giving the time that you will never get back to the people who are less fortunate than you are. So volunteering is the biggest thing that you can do. And number three is making donation with financially supporting people who are doing the work. So whether it's Wings for Heroes or any other charity, you know, for us, we have to donate blood. If we running businesses, like I was busy before, I could not spare a minute, but I could write a check, you know, at that time. And if people are in a position to write a check, that's the help that we need right now. So, you know, I can take this mission to the next level. In November, I'm going to the States, and one day I know, like the Red Cross, I will be all over the world because we really take care of those guys and girls. Like these hands take care of them, and it's the most awesome feeling. So if you can volunteer, do it. You will get satisfaction that no money can give you. And if you don't have the time, just help people like me or me
Yeah.
to help more people.
Yes.
But you got to do, you know, you got to take that action and you got to do something.
So there we have it, guys. You can always reach out, even if you can't physically be there. You can, your donations, your support, your whatever can go a long way in helping these veterans and pushing the mission. Because we're not just changing lives, we're changing people's perspectives, and it's a ripple effect. Once you help one person, the next person is able to help the next person. And at the end of the day, these people are helping us. They are in battle for us, they are warring for us, but this is the least we can do to give back what they've given to us. So let's support Wings for Heroes, guys. Check out the website and and support Lyubim's mission. So let's go to the firecracker segment. This is just a bunch of questions I shoot at you.
Now
and
I'm
you just shoot
nervous.
back at me. No, nothing to be nervous about. So what's the number one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, knowing everything you know now? What would it be?
Do what you love.
Do what you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the most one common misconception about veterans of philanthropy you wish people understood?
That there is some kind of governmental entity or governmental organization or some big groups of people helping. It's not the truth. Even though the programs exist, sometimes people are they're so traumatized they cannot even ask for help. So the biggest misconception is the system is taking care of them and the government is taking care of them. And in reality, most of them are
One is taking care
forgotten,
of them.
and our society treats them out of sight, out of mind. And they're not
Yeah.
crippled, they're not crippled, they're not handicapped. Yeah, they're handicapped by definition, but if you meet them, they're so strong, they're so real resilient, that people who had parts of their body or the senses that were taken away from them, and they're still going. Even the ones who are dealing with it in a negative way, they're all superheroes, they're super people. So no government,
So let's talk.
no organization, it's just, that's the biggest misconception.
Okay, let's talk about you. What's your go-to, tea or coffee?
What's my what?
What would you typically pick, tea or coffee,
Tea or coffee?
or none of them? Yeah.
It depends when. Early in the morning, coffee, later on, tea.
Oh, okay. You're both person.
Yeah, I start with the coffee and then I drink tea all day.
So are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
Oh, I'm super early morning. I'm awake before everybody, naturally.
So how do you unwind? Because you give yourself a lot to your projects and everyone around you. How do you unwind? How do you relax?
I fly paragliders. If I am not too distracted by the mission, if I don't have people here, if I don't have, like when the veterans are here, I cannot fly because my mind is somewhere else. But this month is super busy with both being guests on podcasts and
Yeah.
having somebody here who's doing a month of physical therapy. And I go to all the sessions. I take him to all the sessions, and I'm actually physical therapy. I'm doing it, but swimming I'm not, because I'm not a water person. But I will go flying. Once he's done here on June 25th, and we are finished with my birthday's next month, I am going to
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I'm going to fly to Austria. I'm going to go paraglide. That's my
Okay.
that's my escape. I literally escape from everybody. I go up really
So
high and
is that is that your summer plans for Austria?
yes.
Is that what you plan to do this summer?
Yes, we always go, it gets super hot here in Turkey, and it's impossible to do anything, especially when somebody has prosthetic leg. It's
Yeah.
unbearable. So we pause for the hottest months, and July is my month to take a break, and I'll be in Austria. So if you want to come fly,
Nice.
I will fly you.
I
I
should
mean it.
take the next flight to Austria. All right. It's been amazing having you on the pod today. Like the time just flew, literally flew. I like the way you just shared your experience. You shared your story on resilience and how you've shared other people's story and beaming a light on this cause you're chasing. And I know that our audience are going to definitely support your cause. So, guys, how can we reach you, Lubim? I know you have your websites
Yeah, it's
boldly
right there.
printed in your chest.
Wings, WINGS, number 4, HEROES, wingsforheroes.org. And,
Okay.
you've seen the website, the story is there. All the public videos that been posted on different social media sites, I keep them together. Yeah, it's all at wingsforheroes.org. You can get the good idea of what we're doing, and contact button is there. If somebody has questions, or we're an open source organization, you can come and see how we do it. You can come to sessions with us, you can watch the whole thing, you can see our wonderful volunteers there. Right now it's sunset there at the beach. We have 2 amputees right now. One came last night. He just showed up out of nowhere.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he went
Wow.
paragliding to this organization, wingsforheroes.org, contact button, and you will get to me. I don't spam anybody.
Nice.
Easy to find me.
Nice. And so we have it, guys. Check out wingsforheroes.org. I'll make sure to put all the links in the description so you can just go easily there, click it, and reach out to Lyubim. And there we have it. We've heard Lyubim's story. It's been one of transformation, one of impact, and one of keeping the promise. So until we come your way next week, it's been an amazing episode on the Bricks and Banks podcast. Let's continue to turn knowledge into action and bricks into bank. And like Lyubim said, take the chance on yourself. Take the chance. do what you have to do, keep the promise, and live your life. You never know what's on the other side of life. Till then, it's peace.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie.